At prom night, a black student's victory as prom king sparks fierce resentment from a white rival. What starts as rivalry ignites a powerful reckoning about race, privilege, and acceptance in their school. The gymnasium was buzzing with energy. Strings of fairy lights cast a soft, warm glow over the polished wooden floor, and colorful banners declared, "Prom Night 2025, celebrate the future." The scent of fresh flowers mingled with perfume and cologne, while the hum of excited chatter and laughter filled every corner. For many students, prom night was a rite of passage, a celebration of friendships, memories, and the promise of what was to come. But beneath the festive atmosphere, there was a current of tension that not everyone could ignore. Marcus Williams stood near the entrance, adjusting his tie with a calm confidence. He had earned his spot here, not just because he was a star athlete or a straight-A student, but because he was well-liked, respected, and known for his leadership both on and off campus. Marcus wasn't just a name on the yearbook. He was a presence, a voice for many. Tonight, he was nominated for Prom King. The announcement would be coming soon, and the buzz around his potential victory was electric. For Marcus, this was more than just a crown. It was a symbol of overcoming every silent doubt and stereotype he had ever faced as a black student in a predominantly white school. Across the room, Tyler Bennett was pacing nervously by the punch table. Tyler came from a well-off family, a legacy student whose family had long influenced the town's social circles. He had been the favorite to win Prom King from the start, a quiet certainty whispered in halls and classrooms. Tyler's clean-cut looks and charm made him popular, but there was a simmering edge of frustration behind his polished smile tonight. He watched Marcus from across the room, the excitement in the crowd swirling like a storm around him. Tyler expected to win. It was his turn. He had planned the perfect prom speech, practiced his handshake, and imagined the cheers that would follow. But something about the night felt different. The energy wasn't entirely on his side. Nearby, friends and classmates mingled in groups. Some whispered encouragement to Marcus. Others offered sympathetic glances to Tyler. The dividing lines were subtle but real. Marcus's supporters saw this as a moment of overdue recognition, a chance for the school to step into the future. Tyler's circle, tight-lipped and tense, whispered about fairness and tradition. As the DJ lowered the music, a hush fell over the crowd. The principal, Mrs. Hawthorne, stepped to the microphone, her voice steady but tinged with nerves. "Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us tonight to celebrate this milestone. Now, it's time to announce your prom king and queen. Remember, this night is about unity, joy, and respect for one another." The room darkened slightly as the spotlight focused on the stage. Marcus took a deep breath, his pulse steady, but alive with anticipation. Tyler's jaw tightened. He forced a smile, though his eyes flickered with something harder: disbelief, maybe even resentment. The envelope was opened. The name inside was clear to all. Prom King, Marcus Williams. The gym erupted with cheers and applause from a large portion of the crowd. Marcus's friends rushed forward, lifting him in celebration. He smiled broadly, waving, his heart swelling with a mix of pride and relief. But on the other side of the room, Tyler's expression hardened. The applause felt distant, as if he were watching from behind a glass wall. His lips pressed into a thin line, his fists clenched momentarily before he turned away, swallowed by the crowd. The prom queen was announced next, and the festivities continued. But the moment had already changed everything. Whispers began to ripple through the crowd. "Did you expect that? I thought Tyler had it in the bag." This is going to stir up trouble. The energy in the room shifted from celebration to quiet tension. Marcus moved through the crowd, shaking hands and accepting congratulations, aware of the mixed reactions around him. He could feel eyes watching, some warm, many cold. He caught a few students exchanging uneasy glances, and overheard fragments of conversations that stung with unspoken words. Tyler, meanwhile, found a quiet corner, his mind racing. The loss was more than a disappointment. It felt like a challenge to the status quo, a crack in the social order that had long favored him and his peers. He wasn't ready to accept it. Not without a fight. As the music played on and the night wore deeper into celebration, the undercurrents of rivalry and resentment pulled taut. Friends on both sides whispered warnings and speculations. What started as a moment of joy for Marcus was turning into a test of strength, character, and the difficult conversations the school had long avoided. Prom night had become more than just a dance. It had become a battleground for respect, identity, and the future of a divided community. Marcus looked out across the gym one last time before taking his seat on the stage, crowned and celebrated, but aware that the real challenge was only beginning. The night after prom was a restless one for Marcus. The buzz of excitement still hummed in his ears, but beneath the surface, he sensed the ripples of unease spreading through the school. His phone vibrated with texts, congratulations from friends and teammates, supportive messages from teachers and community members. Yet, amid the warmth, there were subtle signs of division. At school the next morning, the hallways felt different. Some classmates greeted him with genuine smiles, but others glanced away or whispered behind their hands. Marcus was no stranger to the complicated dance of acceptance in a school where he was one of the few black students. But tonight's victory had stirred something deeper. Old prejudices resurfacing, masked behind forced civility. Word had already spread about Tyler's reaction to the prom results. Rumors swirled that Tyler was furious, feeling betrayed by what he called an unfair outcome. Some students whispered about a confrontation brewing between the two boys, and Marcus knew the tension was far from over. At breakfast, Marcus sat with his closest friends, sharing laughs and trying to shake off the heaviness in his chest. Yet, even in their circle, there was talk of the growing divide among students. "You're making history," his friend Jasmine said quietly. "But some people aren't ready for it." Marcus nodded, knowing she was right. This was bigger than prom night. It was about breaking barriers and confronting uncomfortable truths. As classes began, Marcus's thoughts were interrupted by a commotion near the lockers. He turned to see Tyler standing with a group of friends, their eyes locked on him with a mix of anger and disbelief. Tyler's face was tight, jaw clenched, and when their eyes met, Marcus saw the challenge unspoken but clear. Later, in the cafeteria, the atmosphere was charged. Whispers followed Marcus as he walked to his usual table. Students who once smiled now barely nodded. Some stared openly, their expressions hard to read. He felt the weight of unseen judgments pressing down. Then, it happened. Tyler approached Marcus, his voice low, but filled with tension. "You think you deserve that crown?" he asked, the words dripping with resentment. "You're just lucky they wanted to make a statement." Marcus met Tyler's gaze steadily. "I earned it, Tyler. It wasn't luck. And this isn't about statements. It's about recognition." A small crowd gathered as the two stared each other down, the air thick with anticipation. Some students cheered quietly for Marcus. Others murmured in support of Tyler. The line between celebration and conflict blurred. Before the situation could escalate, a teacher intervened, breaking up the confrontation and sending both boys to their next classes. But the tension didn't dissipate. Instead, it lingered like a storm cloud ready to burst. Over the next days, the divide at school grew. Social media became a battleground where students voiced their opinions, often harshly. Supporters of Marcus shared stories of overcoming obstacles and breaking stereotypes. Supporters of Tyler spoke of fairness and tradition, accusing others of pushing political correctness. In classrooms, conversations turned awkward. Teachers struggled to navigate the charged atmosphere, trying to keep discussions respectful, but often walking a tightrope between acknowledging real issues and maintaining order. Marcus found himself at the center of it all, praised by some, targeted by others. Graffiti appeared overnight on school walls, slogans of support, but also hateful words questioning his worth and character. The student council tried to mediate, organizing forums on inclusion and respect, but the wounds were raw and not easily healed. Amid the chaos, Marcus leaned on his family and closest friends. His mother reminded him to hold on to his integrity. "Let them talk," she said. "You know who you are." His coach offered words of encouragement. "This is bigger than the game, Marcus. You're a leader now. Use that strength." But strength was tested when Tyler confronted Marcus again during a school assembly. The tension exploded into a heated verbal altercation, witnessed by hundreds. Tyler accused Marcus of tearing the school apart, while Marcus stood firm, demanding respect and understanding. The confrontation left the school divided, forcing administrators to step in with disciplinary actions and community meetings. Despite the challenges, Marcus's resolve hardened. He realized that winning the crown was only the beginning of a deeper fight, not just for himself, but for every student seeking respect and equality in the halls they walked every day. The days after the school assembly felt like walking through a storm. Marcus woke each morning with a knot tightening in his stomach, knowing that every step through the hallways was met with a mix of stares, whispers, and sometimes outright hostility. The weight of being the prom king, a symbol of triumph to some, a source of resentment to others, pressured him like never before. At first, Marcus tried to keep a low profile, focusing on his schoolwork and basketball practice. But the atmosphere was charged. His name was on everyone's lips, and the energy at Willow Creek High was shifting. Supporters rallied around him, while critics lurked in the shadows, waiting for any misstep. His phone buzzed constantly with messages, some kind, many not. Anonymous texts taunted him, calling him a token and accusing him of dividing the school. Social media was a minefield, with posts celebrating his victory, mixed with cruel memes and hateful comments. Despite it all, Marcus refused to back down. He understood the significance of his win, not just for himself, but for every black student who had ever felt invisible in these halls. His family reminded him daily that he was more than the words thrown his way. One afternoon, as Marcus sat in the library, his best friend Jasmine slid into the seat across from him. "You okay?" she asked, eyes full of concern. He nodded slowly. "It's hard. Feels like I'm under a microscope. But I can't let them win by making me doubt myself." Jasmine smiled. "You've already won, Marcus. You're changing the game." That evening, Marcus attended a meeting with the student council. They wanted to address the tension in school, proposing initiatives to foster understanding and unity. Marcus was hesitant. He wasn't sure if his voice would be heard or if he just faced more criticism. But when he stood up to speak, something inside him shifted. His words were honest and powerful. "We're all part of this school. Winning prom king wasn't about tearing anyone down. It's about lifting each other up. We have a chance to make this place better, but only if we listen, respect each other, and confront the problems head-on." The room was silent for a moment before applause broke out, some hesitant, some genuine. Marcus felt a surge of hope. However, not everyone was ready for change. The next day, Tyler confronted him again, this time in front of the basketball court. The tension crackled as Tyler accused Marcus of playing the victim and riding a wave of sympathy. The argument nearly turned physical before coaches and friends intervened. That night, Marcus's phone rang. It was his mother, her voice calm but worried. "You're doing the right thing, Marcus. But be careful. Not everyone wants to see change." Her words echoed in his mind as he lay awake, thinking about the path ahead. At school, teachers struggled to maintain order as racial tensions simmered beneath the surface. Some classes devolved into heated debates about fairness and privilege. Marcus was often at the center, sometimes welcomed as a leader, other times shunned or ignored. Then came the day the school newspaper published an editorial titled, "Divided We Fall." Written anonymously, but clearly inspired by the controversy, it criticized Marcus for stirring conflict and questioned whether his win represented the true spirit of the school. The editorial sparked a backlash. Supporters of Marcus organized a petition calling for diversity training and open forums to discuss race and inclusion. Opponents accused them of politicizing school events. Marcus found himself speaking at assemblies and community meetings, sharing his story and urging understanding. His words struck a chord with many, but the pushback was fierce. Hate graffiti appeared on locker room walls, with slogans targeting him and other minority students. One evening, after basketball practice, Marcus found a note slipped under his locker. "Go back where you came from." The message cut deep, but Marcus refused to let it break him. Instead, he shared it with his coach, who rallied the team and the school to stand united against hate. As the weeks passed, the school's climate began to shift. Workshops on diversity and empathy were introduced. Clubs formed to celebrate different cultures and promote dialogue. Marcus became a reluctant but inspiring figurehead for the movement. At home, his parents watched with pride and concern. They saw their son becoming a leader, shouldering burdens far heavier than most teenagers. One afternoon, Marcus was invited to speak at a local youth conference. Standing before hundreds, he told his story of triumph and struggle, the highs of victory and the lows of discrimination. "This isn't just about me," he said. "It's about all of us, about breaking down walls and building bridges. Change isn't easy, but it's possible when we stand together." The crowd erupted in applause, and for the first time in a long while, Marcus felt a true sense of belonging. Yet, he knew the journey was far from over. The scars of division ran deep, and resistance simmered beneath the surface. But Marcus was ready. With friends, family, and newfound allies by his side, he vowed to keep fighting, not just to be prom king, but to be a catalyst for real change in Willow Creek High. The air in Willow Creek High was thick with tension, but Marcus found himself standing taller with every challenge. The backlash he faced only seemed to sharpen his resolve. What had started as a simple school election had evolved into a larger battle, one that touched on deep-rooted issues of race, privilege, and identity. Marcus's days were no longer just about classes and basketball. They were about leadership, activism, and navigating a minefield of emotions both within himself and throughout the school. The support he gained from classmates and some teachers was real, but so was the opposition from those unwilling to confront uncomfortable truths. One afternoon, as Marcus walked through the crowded hallways, he noticed groups huddling and whispering, their eyes darting his way. Some gave him encouraging nods, but others wore expressions of resentment or disdain. The whispers sometimes felt like arrows, piercing the armor he was building. The student council, initially hesitant to engage with the rising conflict, now looked to Marcus for guidance. The council president, a thoughtful girl named Emily, approached him one day after class. "Marcus, we're planning a school-wide forum on diversity and inclusion," she said quietly. "It's going to be a safe space for students to share their experiences. Would you be willing to help lead it?" Marcus nodded. "Absolutely. It's time people talked honestly." The announcement of the forum stirred a mix of excitement and apprehension. Flyers appeared around the school, some welcoming the event, others defacing them with hateful graffiti. The administration expressed cautious support, aware that the forum could either heal wounds or deepen divisions. In the days leading up to the event, Marcus and Emily worked tirelessly to organize panels, prepare discussion topics, and invite speakers from diverse backgrounds. Marcus reached out to his family, his basketball coach, and even local activists to gather stories and advice. Meanwhile, Tyler's hostility grew more aggressive. He spread rumors about Marcus, accusing him of seeking attention and causing trouble. During lunch breaks, Tyler and his friends would mock Marcus, attempting to provoke him. But Marcus remained calm, choosing to rise above the petty taunts. One afternoon, as Marcus practiced free throws, Tyler approached the court with a sneer. "You think you're better than us now?" he challenged. "Prom king, hero of the school? You're just lucky." Marcus paused, wiping sweat from his brow. "This isn't about me being better. It's about fairness, about respect, something we all deserve." Tyler scoffed and walked away, but the confrontation left Marcus shaken. He realized the battle wasn't just external, it was internal too, fighting the doubts and fears threatening to consume him. The day of the forum arrived, and the school auditorium buzzed with anticipation. Chairs filled quickly with students, teachers, and even some parents. The walls were decorated with posters promoting unity, empathy, and courage. Emily opened the event with a heartfelt speech, acknowledging the pain and challenges the school faced. Then Marcus took the stage, his voice steady but charged with emotion. "I'm not here to divide us," he began. "I'm here to bring us together, to say that every student in this school deserves to be seen, heard, and valued. Our differences should be a source of strength, not conflict." As students shared their stories, the room filled with a mix of tears, laughter, and moments of uncomfortable truth. Black students spoke of feeling invisible or stereotyped. White students admitted ignorance and fear. Teachers reflected on their own biases and the need for change. The forum was raw and honest, a turning point for many. But not everyone was ready to listen. Outside, a small group protested, waving signs demanding no special treatment and keep traditions alive. Despite the protests, the event was a success. It opened doors for dialogue and set the stage for future initiatives. Marcus's leadership was recognized, but he remained humble, knowing the work was just beginning. After the forum, a coalition of students formed, calling themselves the Bridge Builders. They aimed to continue conversations, organize events, and foster a culture of inclusion. Marcus was elected their spokesperson, but the opposition lingered. One night, after a late meeting, Marcus found his locker vandalized with slurs and threats. The school security took the incident seriously, launching an investigation. Support poured in from students and staff alike, but the message was clear. Hatred still thrived beneath the surface. The incident fueled Marcus's determination. He began working with school counselors to provide support for affected students and collaborated with the principal to implement anti-bullying policies specifically addressing racial harassment. At home, Marcus leaned on his family for strength. His parents encouraged him to take care of himself, reminding him that his worth wasn't defined by others' opinions. His little sister looked up to him with wide eyes, inspired by his courage. As the school year progressed, Marcus balanced activism with academics and basketball. He faced challenges, but also found moments of joy. Friendships blossomed, and the school community slowly started to shift. One afternoon, during a basketball game, the crowd erupted in cheers as Marcus scored the winning basket. Among the applause were students from all backgrounds, celebrating not just the game, but the progress they'd made together. Marcus knew the road ahead would be long and difficult, but he also knew that change was possible. With each step, he was breaking down walls and building bridges, not just for himself, but for every student who dreamed of a school where they truly belonged. The night of the prom arrived with an electric energy that filled the halls of Willow Creek High. For months, students had talked, planned, and anticipated this event, a night meant to celebrate youth, friendship, and hope. But beneath the glittering decorations and upbeat music, tension simmered like a slow-burning fuse. Marcus stood in the crowded gymnasium, dressed sharply in a tailored suit, his eyes scanning the sea of faces. The crown of prom king was a heavy weight, not just a symbol of popularity, but a beacon of change that challenged old traditions. The whispers, the stares, and the mixed feelings all centered on him. Across the room, Tyler lingered with a group of friends, his jaw tight, eyes locked on Marcus with unmistakable resentment. The loss had stung, and Tyler's bruised ego sought an outlet. He wasn't just angry about the crown. He was furious about what Marcus represented, a shift in power, a break from the familiar order. The announcement had been clear and fair, yet some refused to accept the outcome. As the crowning ceremony began, the music softened, and the principal stepped up to the microphone. "With great pride, we crown our prom king, Marcus Thompson," the principal declared, the applause swelling from much of the crowd. Marcus smiled, stepping forward to accept the crown, his heart pounding with a mix of joy and nerves. But just as he raised his head high, the atmosphere shifted. A voice cut sharply through the applause. "This isn't right! He doesn't deserve this!" Heads turned as Tyler stormed to the center of the gym, his voice loud and angry. "You only won because of some stupid race card. This isn't about merit. You're not one of us!" Gasps filled the room. Some students cheered Tyler's outburst. Others fell silent in shock. Marcus held the microphone steady, his calm contrasting Tyler's fury. "This isn't about race," he said firmly. "It's about respect. It's about fairness. And it's about every student having a voice." But Tyler wasn't finished. "You don't belong here. You're just a reminder of everything that's wrong with this school. This isn't your place." The words hit hard, echoing the pain Marcus had felt since returning to school. The whispers, the isolation, the doubt. Yet he refused to be broken. "Maybe I don't fit the old mold," Marcus said, his voice rising with conviction. "But I fit the future. A future where everyone is seen, where everyone matters, not just the ones who look like you." The gym erupted in a mix of cheers and boos. The school was split, some shouting support for Marcus, others rallying behind Tyler's anger. The principal quickly stepped in, trying to restore order. "This is a celebration, not a battlefield," she said firmly. "We will not tolerate hate or disrespect here." But the damage was done. The confrontation had exposed the raw wounds beneath the surface, wounds of prejudice, fear, and misunderstanding. In the days that followed, the school became a microcosm of the larger fight for equality. Students held heated debates in classrooms and hallways. Some teachers struggled to mediate, while others used the moment as a teaching opportunity about justice and empathy. Marcus's role as a leader became more pronounced. He spoke at assemblies, sharing his story not just as prom king, but as a symbol of change. He encouraged dialogue, urging his peers to listen with open hearts. Tyler, meanwhile, retreated into a silence that spoke volumes. Some friends distanced themselves. Others tried to understand the reasons behind his anger. The tension between the two became a poignant reminder of the complexities of racism, how it divides, hurts, but can also lead to growth. The school board called a special meeting to address the unrest. Parents, students, and community leaders gathered, many voicing support for diversity and inclusion, while others expressed discomfort and resistance to change. Marcus stood before the board, his voice steady but filled with passion. "This isn't about tearing down traditions," he said. "It's about building a community where every student feels safe, valued, and proud of who they are." His words resonated, leading to a series of initiatives: diversity training for staff, student-led forums, and support groups aimed at healing divisions. Slowly, the school began to transform. The conversations that once sparked anger now sparked understanding. Friendships formed across racial lines, and the student body learned to embrace its diversity. Marcus's victory as prom king was more than a crown. It was a catalyst. Through struggle and confrontation, the school found a path forward. And for Marcus, The journey was far from over. But standing tall amid the challenges, he knew one thing for certain: change was possible, and it started with courage. The weeks following the tumultuous prom night were filled with profound changes, not only within the school, but also in the hearts of its students and faculty. Marcus's courageous stand and unwavering fight for justice had ignited a conversation that stretched far beyond the school halls. Regular meetings were held in the auditorium, where students openly shared their experiences with prejudice and racism. Teachers and school leaders recognized that ignoring or sweeping these issues under the rug was no longer an option. Together with passionate students, they organized workshops focused on empathy, diversity, and mutual respect. Tyler, once Marcus's fiercest rival, underwent a remarkable transformation. His stubborn resistance gave way to a desire to understand. In a mediated conversation with Marcus, arranged by the school counselor, Tyler admitted that his anger stemmed from fear and uncertainty. Fear of losing his place in a changing world. Marcus responded with grace and empathy. "It's not about excluding anyone," he said calmly. "It's about making space for all of us, creating a better school, together." This dialogue became a powerful symbol of reconciliation. The two young men, once divided by hate, slowly became ambassadors for unity. Parents and faculty joined in, supporting the changes with increasing dedication. New policies promoting diversity and anti-discrimination were adopted, and the school took a clear stance against all forms of racism. Marcus was celebrated not only as prom king, but as a role model, a young man who stood up with courage and dignity against injustice, sending a message of hope to his entire generation. But the true victory was more than just a title or applause. It was the realization that change is possible when you refuse to be silenced. That prejudice and hatred only have power when people stay quiet, and that every voice matters, especially in a community learning to accept each other. Willow Creek High School was never the same again. It had grown, learned, and opened its doors wider. Marcus knew this was only the beginning. In his heart, he carried the hope that future generations would grow up free of the battles he had to fight. In a world where skin color was no longer a barrier, but a part of the rich diversity that makes us all stronger. His story, which began on that unforgettable prom night, became an inspiration far beyond the school walls. It showed that even in the darkest moments, light can emerge, if you have the courage to stand up for what's right. And as the last notes of the prom faded and the school lights dimmed, Marcus knew he had worn more than just a crown. He had embraced a responsibility he proudly accepted, to help make the world a better place. Because in the end, it's not about who wins the title. It's about who finds the courage to raise their voice and fight for justice.